All right, welcome everyone. B-side Charlotte talk, my first one. Today we're going to take a little bit different look around cybersecurity and talk about maybe some of the things we don't hear a lot of about the engineers that are doing the work and how IT operations kind of connects, with our clients and some of the decisions that we make. To introduce myself, my name is Nick Newell. I'm the founder of Rival IT, a boutique MSP and cybersecurity shop based here in Charlotte, North Carolina. My background is in systems, network engineering, and cybersecurity. I've operated 3 other technology shops and worked with teams overseas in South Africa and India, integrating them into one team and kind of one mission to help support our clients, and also operated many other companies in between. So a little bit of everything. So today I wanted to share my experience in how IT security really meets operations and interacts with operations, with the folks that we're supporting, and how some of our decisions may impact a business, right? That's not something, at least I was taught early on. We're going to talk about some soft skills, right? That'd be great for engineers to have or develop potentially, about how to manage their time. And we're going to touch on AI some as well. That's a hot button topic this year, of how we can scale ourselves, with augmenting with AI and integrating it into our daily workflows. We'll discuss situational awareness and how to make great decisions on behalf of our clients that we're often supporting in cybersecurity, and how to take ownership and really drive process and our tickets forward. And then at the end, we'll talk about what a typical career ladder looks like at most cybersecurity or MSP shops, and what you may expect your career trajectory to look like, and how to get to that next level. If you're already at one of these stages, how do you progress and what's required to progress throughout that journey? So let's jump in. This is one of my favorite quotes from Steve Jobs. And it's, you have to start with the customer experience and work backwards to the technology. And I don't think this is one of his more famous quotes, or I don't think it was on any of the Apple keynotes from what I recall. But when I heard this, it really resonated with me as an engineer. When I was doing the hands-on work, I often got excited by the latest and greatest technology tools, the AWS versus the Azure, and now the SentinelOne and CrowdStrike or ThreatLocker. What's the best, coolest thing on the market that I can kind of fit my customer into, right? That's where I started. And I've learned over a long career so far that that's not always the best approach. Just because something is the latest and greatest doesn't mean it's the best for every client or every situation, everyone's budget, so to speak. So usually when you start talking about this kind of push and pull, I often think about it as a slide scale, right? So this is kind of the battle that we deal with in cybersecurity. Is we have absolutely very secure on the left side, and then we have very lax, convenient, easy to do my work on the other side, right? And I think about it as this sort of slide that goes back and forth. And our role, right, as cybersecurity professionals is to balance this slide and find the right place for it. So if we move the slide too far to the left on the security side, which kind of satisfies us as the cybersecurity engineers, right, the business may not be able to operate in a manner that they can service their clients, or to build revenue, or to do what businesses do, right? So if we slide it all the way back to the other extreme on the convenience side, right, we may also harm the business by things being too open and vulnerable to attack, also shutting down operations and probably reducing revenue also if there's a cyber incident. So where experts like us come in, the cyber professional is to move that slide scale and work closely with our clients for them to really understand what protections they need, and to really build scalable solutions so that they're protected and we're also enabling the work that they're doing. We don't want to make things harder for our clients or businesses that we're supporting. We want to make them more efficient. We want to make them better. We want to make them more secure, right? So finding that spot on the slide scale is going to be important when we're doing this work, right, out in the real world. So consider that, right? Not always the best. It doesn't have to be the latest and greatest shiny thing, but find what works for your clients and have these open and honest discussions with them about this slide scale, right? And find the perfect place for them to land. All right, so shifting gears a little bit, right? I want to start moving into the engineer's journey, right? And some of the things that I've heard throughout my travels and managing teams is this statement on top here, right? I'm just too busy. I don't have time to do that, right? I've got too much work, right? I'm overwhelmed. I just didn't get to that task. And I was guilty of this too, right? Until I had a great mentor kind of open my eyes to this concept. And when we say I'm too busy or I don't have time, what we're really saying is that task is actually not a priority. And here's why. So we all know how many hours in a day that we have, 24 hours in a day. We all know how many hours we're going to work that day, the 8, 9, 10 hours, whatever it is for your schedule. And then we also kind of have some control or some idea of what tasks that we need to get done within that period of time. So saying that I didn't have time or I'm too busy is not true. What's true is that task was just not high enough on my priority list to do today, right? And this is something I still catch myself saying often, right? And I like to teach folks to be intentional about what they're saying and how they're managing their time. Generally, in an MSP or MSSP or some cybersecurity shop, right, time matters, the way we're spending it. So especially when dealing with an incident, right, it really matters. So we need to make sure that we're triaging and we're understanding all the tasks that need to be done on the left side and then ordering them, right, in the appropriate 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the stack that we're going to do them in on the right, and make sure that we're progressing through that in a meaningful way. This way, we're getting the most important things done, right, when they need to be done, and we're not missing anything. And again, in our world, right, missing something or not reacting to something within 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes could be a big deal. It could be a disaster. So when thinking through this, time is kind of our construct and how we're using our time, it leads me to think on the next thing is efficiency. So how can I be more efficient as an engineer and be more intentional with my time? And it just so happens there's a great tool for that, right? AI. AI is the answer, it seems like, for everything nowadays. I don't think there's a SaaS app that I've used in the past 6 months that either has already integrated some form of Copilot or AI capability or has it on the roadmap or it's coming very soon. But this is part of our lives now. And for those that are newer into cybersecurity or into their IT career, AI is not necessarily a new construct, right? At least in its current iteration. We have been writing software that could write software since the 90s. It's not necessarily new, but it's finally kind of hit that event horizon where it's entered the mainstream and it's built into a product that's easily usable by the masses. So now that this tool is out there, right, how can we use it to make ourselves better? How can we enable ourselves to be more efficient? And how can we maybe scale our skill set a little further than maybe it really is in actuality, right? How can we create that value in our roles? And for me, right, I can write code barely adequately in these days, right? And Python was always my language of choice, or PowerShell. But using AI, ChatGPT, Bard, whatever your favorite flavor of LLM is, using ChatGPT, we can just prompt it with text to output code, right? At least at a basic level. And if you've learned some code in college or through Code Academy or other means, or maybe just on your own, it gets you pretty close, usually about 80–90% of the way with some basic things. But if you have that skill set or you understand the constructs or framework of how code is written, you can use a tool like ChatGPT or Google Bard to really accentuate your work, right? And this is an example I just used the other day myself. On a server for a client, we needed to find out what folders, within 2 TB data set, actually had data in them, which ones are blank, and how long ago they've been updated, right? So if this data can be cold storage, or is this hot data, warm data, what is it? So we needed to figure this out and provide this context to our clients. So I could have probably hacked together a script with Python or some other, PowerShell to do this, but I went to trusty ChatGPT, typed in the instructions, and I got outputted a script within 5 minutes that was usable, that I could provide an output for, and that really helped me scale my skill set, right? So instead of spending hours creating it, 10 minutes, I was already past this barrier and moved on to the next thing, right? So I hope everyone leaves, this talk, maybe with a different kind of understanding of how AI can help in your day-to-day role, right? So coding, amazing. Also great with formatting emails is another one, or writing letters. I use it for that often. Another thing now that's built-in functionality I noticed in 3.5 is the ability to put a wrapper around the text that you put into the application with ChatGPT, right? And a wrapper is kind of this set of instructions on how to manipulate responses with the tool. So what we've been using at Rival IT is we use Microsoft Teams to record our internal meetings, right? And Teams provides this text transcript of the meeting, right? Who was speaking, and kind of identifies the people. And we've written a wrapper for ChatGPT to take this meeting, to summarize it, right, in just a few sentences of what was the topic, what was discussed. And then we've also prompted it to enter any takeaways or action items, and who those action items are assigned to, and to associate any due dates or any deadlines that were mentioned during that meeting, right? So Teams gives us this wall of text of what's happened. We built this wrapper for ChatGPT, input the text, and we get this really clean output of a summary, the takeaways, the deadlines, and who needs to do what. So everyone understands what the next steps are, and then we can schedule and move forward with these action items, and not just show up to a meeting. And I'm sure you've all been on one of these, right? Where you go to a meeting, everybody talks about a bunch of stuff, and you leave, and it's kind of like, what the heck happened, right? What do we do next? What are we supposed to do? Using AI, using these tools that we have available, we're actually able to keep ourselves on track, right? And drive our efficiency and drive towards a better client experience. So moving forward past AI, right? Another thing that I like to remind engineers about is to be situationally aware, right? Just be aware of what you're working on and what's going on around you. And this first bullet point, I always get questions on this one. I'll be curious if I have any from this group, but know what you don't know, right? And I get this all the time. Nick, how can I know what I don't know if I don't know it, right? It's kind of like that oxymoron. But what I mean is, when you come across something, or you get a ticket, or you get a response for a client, and self-assess, is this something that I'm an expert in? Do I know how to answer this question? Or do I have any idea what's going on at all, right? Those are kind of the questions that I ask myself even when I get these things. And it's important to do that because, especially in the context, if you're servicing clients, if you get a ticket or maybe an incident, right, comes through your SOC, and you're not familiar with that incident, you've never seen it before, you don't know what the alert means. A lot of us in tech and cybersecurity specifically, we like problems, we like puzzles, we like to figure things out, we like to learn, right? So we're more than willing to just dive into something we don't fully understand to learn about it and become the expert. And usually that's great. When it's not great is when we're servicing a client, right? And there's some expectation on the other side. So in this example, if this security incident comes in and we're not sure what it is, and we spend 5 hours researching it, and then we finally figure out what's going on, if there is a real security threat there, that threat has already had 5 hours to percolate and do what it's going to do and maybe damage a client's environment or maybe our own environment if you're doing internal cybersecurity for a company, right? So that time period of understanding can make all the difference in the world potentially, right? So it's important if you get something like that. And I want to let everybody know that it's okay to raise your hand and say, hey, I need help, or I need to escalate this, or I need someone to look over my shoulder with this, or to give me some direction. As an operator, like at my company, we encourage engineers to do this, to raise their hand and say, I don't know. And it may be a situation when you get that feedback or advice from your manager or supervisor, team lead, whatever, and say, it's okay, spend the time to learn on this, maybe, and that'd be awesome, right? But sometimes it's not. And you may need to escalate that ticket to a person that maybe is more experienced with that particular thing and then can address it more quickly. And I always encourage everyone to follow up on that issue, to ask that person later, hey, whatever happened with that, or what's going on? Stay involved with it to learn, but we have to understand what's happening in the real world. We can't be selfish enough to hold up remediation or to not launch a defensive, right, to get our client to stop an attack or to prevent something that may be in progress. We can't have that big barrier of time in our way. So we need to be moving forward through these type of issues. So that's where the next point comes in. Don't try to be a hero in cybersecurity. No one knows everything. And you certainly aren't expected to know everything by any means, right? So everyone has their skill sets, everyone has their specialties. We're all always learning and we're all always getting better. So don't think that you have to take everything on and be the hero and try to save the day at the detriment to a client you're supporting or maybe your internal organization even. Don't be that person, right? Make sure you're raising your hand and you're getting tickets or incidents to the right person at the right time. And the last point here, as far as situational awareness goes, be aware, like I said in the beginning, of what you're working on and what's coming in, right? If you're seeing recurring incidents come through or recurring alerts, think about, is there a way that I, as an engineer, could stop this from happening ever again, right? So if we get the same alert for the same false positive that Sentinel-1 is producing this alert for some McAfee pseudo antivirus that's on a user's computer, and we say, oh, well, we just unquarantine it and move on, but we don't actually fix the root issue of making sure we remove that application from the user's computer so that we don't keep getting these alerts from Sentinel-1 to alert us, right? So think about that when you're working that SOC desk or you're working your help desk and you're seeing these recurring issues come in. Identify those and again, say, have we put a Band-Aid on this before and now it's returning? Or is this something that we need to do like a 5 whys analysis on, or that we need further exploration to really solve this challenge, right? Because when we fully solve a challenge, not only is it no longer a concern to our client or the entity that we're supporting, but we don't also have to spend time on it anymore internally, right? We're IT folks. Let's be a little lazy, right? Let's use our skills to stop so much work from coming in, script things, and put things in a better place, right, for our end users or for our clients. So as far as being an engineer, right, and I've kind of messed around with this methodology for my teams the last 10 years or so, this idea of leaning forward with the work that we're doing, right? So when I say lean forward, I really mean it for everything that we're doing, right? So if you have a ticket, make sure we're being aggressive and pushing towards a resolution, right? What I mean by being aggressive is if there's an outage or there's something like that, or we're waiting on another third-party vendor to get back to us, don't be passive, right? And just say, well, it's on their end. I'll just wait until they decide to email me back or to call me back, and I'll wait a week or a few days. I encourage our teams to push forward, right? Lean further forward to those resolutions and proactively call. Hey, it's been a few hours. Did we make any progress on this? Or hey, we touched base yesterday. What's the next step? Or is this working for you still? Or did Sentinel-1 start reporting in, or CrowdStrike? Whatever the case may be, push towards that resolution. Don't be passive, right? A lot of us in IT and cybersecurity, we're largely introverts, right? We're more comfortable behind the screen rather than being in front of it usually. We're more comfortable sending a text versus making a phone call, right? Or sending an email, right? That just kind of feels better for us. But we have to understand the rest of the world doesn't operate necessarily the way a technology professional, whether it's just IT or cybersecurity specifically. We live in email, we live in IMs, we live in Teams and Slack and these chats, right? Discord. But the people that we're supporting or the businesses that we're supporting generally don't, right? So we need to understand that and communicate in a way that is great for them also, right? So it may feel a little weird to pick up a phone and call someone or to follow up on something, but your clients or your users are going to appreciate that because it shows that you care and that you're pushing forward towards a resolution, right? So think about your own experience if you've dealt with something, right? Like if you're expecting someone to call you back, like this has happened to me at our office recently, internet goes out. Call Spectrum in Charlotte and say, hey, internet's out. And they're like, yeah, we know, somebody hit a fiber line, doing construction. It'll be on at 3:00. Well, great, right? So 3:00 comes around, still no internet. 4:00 comes around, 5:00 comes around. I'm kind of wondering what the heck's going on, right? And on the client side, I've wondered for a while now, right? I'm really wondering what's going on here. And I'm like, surely they're going to call me any moment, and they don't. So finally, I have to feel like I have to reach out and push this, right? And understand what's happening. So, oh yeah, there's a complication. It's not going to be till tomorrow, right? Think about how you react in that situation. You're probably going to be pretty frustrated. So not only did they tell you something, an expectation, and didn't meet that, they also didn't follow up with you to let you know the new expectation. And now you had to just be left wondering for this period of time. And then finally you get so frustrated, you call them back. And even if you don't, that doesn't come through on the call, you still feel that way, right? And the same thing is true for our users or our clients that we're supporting. Don't make them wonder what the next step is or what's going to happen next or what the situation is, what's going on. There's a line in one of the Batman movies, and I forget which one, maybe someone knows, but I think the Joker said, no one panics when things go according to plan, right? And that's so true. If we know what to expect and we just tell someone, hey, it's going to be 3, and then it's going to be 8, and then it's going to be 10 for that ISP to come on, right? As long as I have some idea of what's happening and that someone's informing me and there's some type of plan, I'm good, right? I feel better about that. When people get anxious, just because there's no plan, there's no communication, there's no next step, there's no documentation, everyone's kind of just wondering what's going on. So when you're working with your teams, right, or you're supporting users, make sure that we're communicating early and often and what the plan is and what's happening, right? And make sure in your tickets, write a next step. Maybe the next step is to call somebody. Maybe the next step is this is resolved, right? For my teams, what we do is at the end of our tickets, we just write NS, right? N for next, S for step. And we put 2 backslashes and just put whatever the next item is, right? Easy peasy. None of the other team members have to call me and ask me, hey, Nick, what's going on with this ticket, right? It's already in the ticket. Next step's already defined. I've documented it, right? So if a client calls while you're at lunch or an end user calls while you're at lunch, one of your colleagues can cover and say, hey, it looks like Nick's here. He's going to do this thing next. No problem, right? People don't panic when things go according to plan. So it's our responsibility to make the plan and help them understand what the next steps are with whatever we're working on. So shifting gears once again, right? Thinking about this career mindset of cybersecurity professionals or IT professionals at large. what do we need to do, or how should we be thinking if we want to move into that next stage of our career, right? How do I get from the help desk to that team lead role? How do I get to be from an engineer to a manager? What skills do I need, right? How can I start getting my manager, my boss, like thinking about me as a candidate for one of these roles, right? So I think it starts with the title here, right? At least for me, I'm looking for owners, not renters. I want someone that owns a process and takes responsibility and is ready, right, to take on things that even may make them a little bit uncomfortable. And that's okay, right? That's how we grow. That's how we get to our next stage in our career. We're not going to do it by always being comfortable. You have to kind of edge yourself out to that, where you're not quite comfortable and, really stretching yourself a bit. So if you want to be a leader or a good boss or a great manager, lead from the front, right? Be there with your team. Team works late, you work late, right? I always like to work in the same, we call it the bullpen, right? Where all our engineers are. I don't want to sit in an office somewhere or on the top floor of some building. I want to be where the work is happening and where the teams are working, right? So if you're considering a management role or you are a manager, be where the work's happening, be where the conversations are, be where the people are, if possible. I know a lot of teams are remote these days, but even if you're remote, make time to be in person and be intentional with that time and how you can be with your team, right? So this is what people are looking for, right? Be a leader, lead from the front, and be that go-to person. So even if you're not a manager or anything like that, you can still be a go-to person being an SME, a subject matter expert on one of your tools. You can be that go-to person. No one's stopping you from learning more and writing documentation and sharing information with your team. No one's stopping you. And then all of a sudden, overnight, you're kind of the SME for CrowdStrike, and then maybe you're the SME for Avanan or whatever you're using, the security products that you're using, right? Maybe you're that expert. This is how you start creeping into that next level, which we're going to talk about a little bit more, right? Of how to get into that job or that next role before you actually get it. And most importantly, right, is don't gatekeep information. I see this all the time with other teams I've worked with. There's someone on the team that knows something and they don't really want to share it with anyone else because they feel like that creates their store of value, that, oh, I'm going to be the go-to person for this and they can't fire me because I know this. If you're doing that, please stop it. It's not a good look, right? You can, you can attract a lot more flies with honey, right? So sharing information, being that leader on the team and empowering people is all like what it's about, like leading teams, right? That's essentially all you're doing, is empowering teams to do their best work. So if you're gatekeeping information, you're certainly not doing that. And you're probably on your way out if you're doing it. You just don't know it yet, right? So if you're doing that today, please consider stopping, finding a way to empower your team, right? And finally, this one hand up, one hand down concept. As you're climbing a career ladder, think about climbing an actual ladder. As you're going up, think about all the advice that you've gotten, the books that you've read, the mentors you've had, the good bosses, the bad bosses, where you've learned these lessons, right? You've been a benefactor of this. So as you're going up throughout your career, think about how you can reach down and pull someone else up with you, right? Pull them up to that next rung on the ladder, enable them, teach them. And doing so, you're not threatening yourself. You're not diminishing your skills. You're actually making yourself better, right? It takes a different level of understanding to teach something versus just knowing something or understanding a concept. So if you're able to do that for someone else and pull them up along with you throughout your journey in your career, that's really the best thing to do, even for you as an individual, right? It feels good helping other people, and you're learning how to lead and be a mentor for someone else. So continuing, right, on this kind of journey, this career ladder, this is typically what it looks like for most, IT shops, cybersecurity firms that I've worked with, at least, right? Generally, when you start at one of these firms, you start as a SOC analyst, right? You're a help desk technician. you're taking all the incoming work, you're identifying, these alerts generally, analyzing them if they need attention or if they're false positives. And you're really kind of beginning to understand the work, right? Usually you're here for a year, maybe a couple years, at that analyst level. Maybe you start thinking, hey, what's next, right? So what's next is that team lead role for a lot of shops, that kind of in between the analyst and the engineer. And generally the team lead acts as a filter between a help desk or the SOC and our engineering team. Kind of filter out requests that would normally pass through there, unimpeded. We want the team lead there to really support the analyst team or the help desk, give them what they need, solve any, simple or basic escalations, and filter out some of that noise from our engineering team, right? We want our engineering team to be working on architecture, solving security incidents, doing, reporting of after the fact, maybe for insurance or auditors. We want the engineers doing, that more impactful work, if you will. Not that the analyst or the help desk isn't impactful, it certainly is, but the engineering team needs to focus on what they need to focus on. The other teams need to focus on their priorities, right? So the team lead really helps enable this role. And I've been in this role myself, and I felt it to be very dynamic, right? So I learned a ton being in this team lead role of how I could help teach, right, the people that I was working with on the desk, and liaising with the engineering team, right, and learning from them and them helping me solve problems for the team that I was supporting, right? So like in that role, I probably learned the most throughout my career in that kind of in-between role, right? So if you're curious of what that team lead role looks like, that's generally how it works. Moving forward past the team lead into an engineer, right? So I wish someone would have talked to me about this before I got to this stage in my career. But the SOC analyst, the team lead role, they're kind of the minor leagues, if you will, as far as responsibility and impact goes, compared to being an engineer is more like being in the major leagues, right? So now the stakes are a little bit higher when you're an engineer. You're working on real businesses. You're working with businesses with real revenue, right? You're solving bigger problems. You're dealing with higher level incidents. You're making recommendations that someone is going to take as gospel, and you can't be wrong. We're here to give that technical advice or to build out the cybersecurity framework. We need to be right about it, because if we're wrong, it could have negative repercussions, right? So understand, generally moving in that engineering role, there's a different level of responsibility and education and maturity required to really do well in that role. You have to start thinking about how that business works, like we talked about in the beginning, right? How do we power a business with technology, right? Not how we have this cool technology and have a business that pays for it all, right? We need to power these clients with the technology that we have and keep them safe and secure. So moving past the engineer into a senior engineering role, it's kind of more the same, except you get more into the architecture, right? Do we use this product or that product, and why? Does this meet our clients' compliance standards, right? Does it satisfy SEC or HIPAA requirements? Things like that, right? So that's more of a known quantity. That's why I've even designated kind of the same color as the others throughout the engineering path here. Kind of blue pill here, if you will, is the management side. So I actually was in this exact position about 10 years ago in my career. So I want to continue being an engineer and stay technical, or I don't want to try to do this management operations thing, right? And I had no idea how to be a manager at the time, or really even what that meant. I did some research, and for me, I found that doing a self-assessment, I really like to solve problems, right? And that was the core of what I really enjoyed. And I think that's true for a lot of people that are in cybersecurity and IT in general. We like to solve problems. We like to build solutions. So it wasn't clear to me until I researched this, but being a manager or an operator is essentially that. But instead of solving technical problems, you're solving people problems and process problems, which is way more difficult than the technical stuff, right? Just being honest here. Everyone's different. Everyone has a different work style. Everyone has a different way of thinking. How do you get an entire team of people to start moving in the same direction with the same goal, the same strategy? How do we organize our documentation, right? How do we manage our work? How do we keep our clients happy, right? How do we think about growing and when we need to hire more people or not hire more people, right? All problems to solve, all require that same kind of tactical mindset, just like the engineering problems, right? Or the cybersecurity problems. It's really the same muscle, just applied in a different way. So I know that management thing is kind of like a bad word to a lot of us, right? The manager is kind of the enemy a lot of the times. But I'd encourage you to be open to it, right? And really self assess if it may be for you. And it's not for everybody, and that's okay. But you need to decide what you like to do and how you want your career to progress, and be intentional about where you want to be. Think about that ladder analogy that I used, right? Where do you want to be on that ladder? Maybe you're happy being a team lead and you're happy with the money you make and your schedule, and you want to focus on your hobbies outside of work. That's awesome. That's great. Nothing wrong with that at all. But if you want to move forward, I wanted to discuss, what that would look like and how you may do it. So a few ways, right, on how to get promoted or how to get to that next level. Look for ways to provide value, like we talked about, right? So providing value for me, what worked for me personally, is being open to work that was outside of normal working hours, right? So at the MSPs I worked at, hey, we got to do a project on the weekend. Who's available? Who wants to help? And I started raising my hand, right? And the first time I raised my hand, it was just to see what this, server project or networking upgrade or this, working on creating this MPLS or whatever it was. What did that look like, right? I was just someone on the help desk. I didn't really know. But I wanted to know. I wanted to get involved, right? I wanted to see what this kind of next stage looked like. And when I did that, I noticed a lot of things started changing for me, right? And it doesn't necessarily have to be after hours, but when I volunteered to help or to get involved with this, number one, your manager or boss will start to notice, hey, this person's kind of a go-getter. They're getting out there, right? They're willing to, get outside their comfort zone a little bit. And the second benefit for you personally is now all of a sudden you get to spend one-on-one time with that really advanced engineer on your team that you maybe don't get to talk to that much or get to work closely with. And then once you start working with them, they show you things, right? You're helping them out. You're just kind of being there, and you develop a relationship, with that person. So now you may have created this kind of mentorship where they're kind of, hey, Nick, check this out, or let me pull you into this, or hey, I need some help with this other project. You want to help, right? You're developing this rapport with them. And then now all of a sudden you're the go-to person. And now all of a sudden you're involved in the high level projects, right? You're a contributor. You kind of skip to that next level and no one even really knows it, right? And that's exactly what you want. How do you get involved? How do you learn? How do you get the information that you want, right? How do you get to that next level? That's how you go above and beyond in your role, right? It's simple as just raising your hand or just saying yes, just to get involved. People notice. This is exactly how you get the job before doing the job, right? No one is just going to show up to you. And if you're on a help desk, let's say you're level 1 analyst, and say, hey, you seem really smart. Let me spend a bunch of money and time to train you, give you everything you need, and then move you to level 2 and then pay you more money. A lot of people think that's going to happen, right? It sounds pretty silly when you say it out loud. That's never going to happen. You have to start doing the role and leaning forward into what you want to get noticed and to let folks know that, hey, this may be a person for this role. This may be someone we need to bring along a little more quickly. They're providing more value to the organization than the role they're currently in. We need to move them up, right? That's how it works. No one's just going to pluck you out of your spot and put you somewhere else, okay? So wrapping up here, key takeaways. So start with the customer experience and work backwards to the technology, right? Think about how you can utilize tools like AI, Copilot, whatever it may be, to enhance and augment your skill set. Think about situational awareness. Be aware of the work that you're doing and that your teammates are doing, and make sure it's the best use of our time and it's of the highest priority. And finally, if you want to get promoted or you want to get to that next stage, you must do the job, before getting the job. All right, that's it. Thank you very much.